Hey everyone, it's Norm Farrar, aka the Beard Guy here, and welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the Amazon, FBA, and e-commerce podcast.
Lunch with Norm, lunch with Norm, lunch with Norm, lunch with Norm.
Okay, we're starting off the new year right. We've got another great show for you today. We're going to be talking about, and this is something we've never talked about, the heavy price that Amazons pay for not knowing their customers. So we've got a special guest today, Rael Cline, and he has his career started as a private equity finance guy, and he realized quite quickly that he wanted to get into something else. So after building an existing company, he started to focus on Amazon, the Amazon ecosystem, with a London-based company called Nozzle. Anyways, Rael Cline will be joining us shortly, but before we get to Rael, it's going to be a word from our sponsor. Thank you, Z.co, for sponsoring this episode of Lunch with Norm. Are you looking to take your e-commerce business from local to global? You can with the help of Z and their brand new app. That's right. You can track live shipments with push notifications, get detailed lead times for each stage of your shipment, and store all compliance and VAT reclaim documents in the palm of your hand, all while listening to Lunch with Norm. Ready to expand your e-com empire and take your Amazon FBA business global? Use the link in the description to learn more about Z's new app that's now available on desktop and mobile. That's Z.co, ZEE.co. Okay, where's the squire?
That is me, and hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How's Toronto treating you?
It's doing fantastic. It's still pretty cold and snowy, so yeah, missing North Carolina for sure. But
yeah, me too.
yeah, welcome everyone. Welcome DK Kim. How are you? He was one of the winners for the chocolate. We're going to be setting him up. Rad, Amar, and Jeff. Thanks again, fellas, for setting up the Facebook group and having all the quality content. Thank you, Jeff. We're glad you are appreciating it and a part of it. The community is nothing without our Beer Nation members. So we really love to see the community that's kind of growing there. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. If you guys aren't part of it, you can check out Lunch with Norm, Amazon FBA, and E-commerce Collective. That's the Facebook group. So check it out. Let us know what you think. And yeah, also don't forget to smash those like buttons. Give us those thumbs up. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you smash. If you're watching from YouTube, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the little bell next to it. And if you're watching from Facebook, the 3 dots and click on the push notifications, and that will get you all of the notifications once we go live. So welcome Simon to the show as well. Good to see you. And yeah, we can jump into it, and I think it's going to be a great episode.
Okay. All right. So if you do have any questions, throw them over in the comment section. And hopefully you do. We love the engagement. Now sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy the show. Welcome, Rael.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great having you. This is a great topic, by the way.
Yeah, it's something that's not really spoken about all that much, but really makes such a huge difference when you really uncover what's going on and what you can and can't do and how to make good use of it. So yeah, very much looking forward to the conversation.
So I know I didn't cover it in detail, but for those of us who may not know who you are, what do you do? What's your, well, I know your name already, but let's just get a little bit of your background.
What it says in my title and what I do, it can be, very different things. No, so currently I am a co-founder of a company called Nozzle, and we help Amazon sellers really understand their customers. Who is it that's buying from them? And we paint a picture of who their customers are, and then crucially, how to use that data, to grow your business, right? To achieve your goals on Amazon. Prior to that, as you said in the intro, my background is a little bit strange, let's say. I started out in the finance world, actually, with private equity. So a lot of time in Excel and building financial models and things like that. I wasn't a good fit for various reasons. Companies kind of exist in spreadsheets as opposed to more tangible things. And so I made the move to, I studied first. I actually studied a master's in finance. So I was kind of all in on the finance thing. And then after studying, deciding that I don't want to do this anymore, as you do.
It happens.
Kind of an expensive way to learn that lesson. So I got out of finance, and I'm South African, so maybe a bit of explains the weird accent there. But I went back to South Africa for a year, did a tech startup there, more in sort of telco land. But I came to the UK and started a company in London, really focused on online advertising, but nothing to do with Amazon at that point, right? Very much the wider advertising ecosystem. Showing display ads across the internet, and very, very tech focused. So we would write custom algorithms to bid in these auctions, right? Whatever you submit a CPC or whatever it is. So I exited that business, but really quite quickly landed on Amazon for the next thing that I wanted to do. And the reason for that is if I go back to that previous business and really focus on the stuff that worked really well, it was those brands that were focused not just on the advertising side, but what happened after the ad, right? So someone clicks on the ad, they install the app, or they sign up to your product, whatever it is, but you really want to be tracking them for however long they actually have a relationship with you. They buy 3 times in the year, or they buy twice in 2 years, whatever it is. And those brands that did a good job of that were the most successful ones. And so when it came time to start a new company, where else can we apply this principle, right? And quickly landed on Amazon, because they've got a closed ecosystem. They've got the advertising side, and they've clearly got all the retail data around what happens after somebody just buys once, twice, 3 times. And looking at the ecosystem, there weren't really any tools for sellers to be able to uncover all of this sort of information. And so we thought that was a really good opportunity. There are plenty of really good tools in the Amazon ecosystem around advertising, around operational inventory, and profit and loss and all those sort of things. But for us, focusing on the customers should really be a starting point. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about this, but focusing on who's buying from you should really be the starting point in building the building blocks of success on Amazon.
Now, does Nozzle focus on Amazon alone, or do they get into the Shopify side or Walmart?
Yeah, so for the moment, it's just Amazon, but we're obviously looking into other marketplaces and Shopify and all those things, right? And people quite rightly say this is great that we can do this for Amazon, but ultimately I've got customers on all other channels, and sometimes they hop across channels. And can you give me insights into what's going on across channels and all that? So yeah, that's clearly within our roadmap. But for the moment today, we're just on Amazon.
Okay, this is fantastic, because we've talked about this on the podcast before, about understanding your customer, understanding the demographic. We talk about social media and how we can get the information, extract the information out of them, out of different social platforms using different apps. But this is very unique, for Amazon. Matter of fact, I don't think any app comes to mind that does what you're doing. So I like to circle back later on in the episode, but let's just talk about the importance of knowing your customer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the reason why we exist, right? Is we think this is just such a fundamental point. So if we take a step back and just take a look at where we are today, being a seller in the Amazon ecosystem, it's getting really tough to do well, right? To succeed. And it's just getting tougher. So you've got multiple things that are going on. You've got some things that are just sort of environmental, just the wider sort of ecosystem, what's going on in the world. And then you've got stuff that's Amazon related. So, clearly the supply chain and all the headaches that kind of aren't even going away anytime soon, frankly. That's a real big issue. But within the Amazon ecosystem, it's getting a lot tougher as well. So you've got, for instance, you've got many more sellers that are entering the market every single day. You've got very well-funded sellers and competitors.
That's
right.
Big.
Yeah. So you've got your aggregators that, every day the numbers change because it's just more and more money raised, but it's something like $12.5, $13 billion that have been raised So, what happens if one of your competitors is bought by an aggregator, and now you're thinking, gosh, how do I compete against such a well-funded competitor, right? You've got some of the referral fees and things like adjustments on Amazon fees actually going up, and so it's becoming a lot harder to be profitable and to win on Amazon. And so for us, we take a step back and say, well, it's no longer good enough to just sell products on Amazon. You need to be able to build a brand on Amazon, particularly if you have the view that you ultimately want to sell this in the future. People want to buy brands. People don't want to just buy sort of a collection of products, right? You'll get a higher valuation, a better price for all those sort of things. And if you think about what does it mean to build a brand, there are many ways to measure this. There are many ways to define this. But for us, one of the main things has got to be loyal customers, right? And loyalty for us means people who buy again. And so taking this to the next step, our tool will measure the behavior of your customers around things like what we call profit per customer or customer lifetime value. So we would say, on average, people buy 4 times in a year, and your total profit per customer is whatever, $50 or whatever it is across all 4 of those purchases. We would do things like, hey, 1,000 people bought your product once, but actually only 50 people bought it twice, right? What is your retention rate of the products? We'll do things like, if someone bought the first time they bought a product, it was product A. When they bought again, was it product A again, or was it product B again, or product B rather? And so, understanding the behavior and the purchasing patterns, not just what people say, but what they do and where they put their money, for us is the clearest signal, of building a brand and being successful on Amazon. So we give all this sort of information, and crucially, what to do with it. Okay, what do I do knowing that my profit per customer is $50? What does that actually mean? And so we give you the tools to understand how to execute on that, and we can obviously talk about all those things. But yeah, that's kind of like our sort of reasoned thinking of landing on doing what we're doing.
I'm wondering, because I've had clients. Matter of fact, the last episode we were talking about a client that I had that had 280,000 emails that he's gathered from his clients or from his customers.
Right.
He's never utilized it once.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay. And these were clean emails.
Yeah.
I never utilized it once. Now, if you go back to what you're thinking about or what you do on Amazon, and you're getting that information and you're finding out who the customer is, what kind of additional sales could somebody expect by understanding their customer?
Yeah. So one of the most impactful metrics that we do is this idea of going from the first to the second purchase, right? So to use my kind of earlier example, 1,000 people buy your product once, and let's say 150 people buy again. So that is ultimately a customer retention rate of 15%, right? Of people then go buy twice. So what we found that if you increase that 15% to 16%, so just 1% up, right, to 16%, so that's 160 people instead of 150 people, that impacts your profits by 7%, right? So it's a 7x multiplier on profits, not on revenue, on profits. And so, really like understanding how you can retain customers, because sure, some of them might just buy twice, but actually people who buy twice are much more likely to buy 3 times and then 4 times and then 5 times. And so that impact over time just compounds. And we found out that for a 1% increase of your retention rate from the first to the second purchase results in a 7% increase in profits. So that's the sort of impact, we're talking about here.
Wow. So before I forget, we have got, and if you like the topic, which if you're a seller, you got to like this subject. I mean, you have to know your client anyway, or your customer. Anyway, Rael's got a great giveaway today. And I don't know if you want to talk about it, but anyways, it's going to be #Kelsey. Tag us twice and you'll get a second entry. But Rael, what is your giveaway?
Yeah, so we obviously have our tool, but you can sign up. You can get 50% off the first month, and we'll throw in a consultation with you to understand your business. We come across this data every single day. We've seen people execute well. We know what works. We know what doesn't work, and so we'll set up a 30-minute consultation to go through what we call a growth plan, ultimately, right? And say, like, these are the products. Just for instance, very often we would come across circumstances where the product that's responsible for the most sales is not actually the product that your most valuable customers are buying, right? And so we can point these things out to you and say, okay, you might want to think about switching up where you want to focus your product portfolio and stuff like that. So yeah, 30-minute consultation. We'll do a deep dive into your business and tell you what to do with the data.
So we normally get a lot of different key consults from PPC, managed services, a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
This is very unique. So if you've never done Wheel of Kelsey before, hashtag Wheel of Kelsey. I tell you, if you're spending a half hour with Rael, you're going to learn something. So we're also going to sweeten the pot a little bit. If you're in North America, we've got this gigantic box of chocolates, and we've got our latest 2022 calendar with myself and Tim Jordan that we'll send out. So if you're living outside of North America, enter anyways, and you will get that the consult and the 50% off. So it's priceless. All right, so let's talk a little bit further. By the way, if you have questions about your customers or what you should be looking for, make sure you throw it in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so I'm kind of curious. I want to make sure, first of all, and again, I'm going to just go back to your app, but
yes.
How can you get the information and be within TOS?
Yeah, absolutely. Crucial question, right? So we've had to go through an extremely rigorous process around, basically being for our specific use case, getting the green light from Amazon to do this, right? So completely TOS compliant, and we'd use a combination of algorithms to do this. So just to be very clear, in the app, we're never going to surface anybody's name, anybody's email address, none of that stuff, right? You're gonna know things like, of the people who signed up in January, this is how they did in the next 6 months. You're not going to know things like, hey, Norm did this and Norm did that. So that's you definitely can't surface any of that sort of information. So we're very clear, we're never going to expose anything that's names and email address or anything along those lines.
So that's cool to know. So you have been approved by Amazon.
Correct.
Okay. And the information that you're going to extract, the information that you're going to be able to provide to the seller, what would that be?
Yeah, so we focus on a couple of sort of core metrics, and this is the idea of profit per customer, right? And so just to give you an example, Norm comes in January, buys a product, and you make a $5 profit off that product. He comes back in April, buys again, comes back in June, comes back in December, and buys the same thing, let's say 4 times. And so your total profit is $20 over that year. And so why this is such a crucial metric is it's effectively saying that you can afford to spend up to $20 to acquire somebody like Norm if you're willing to wait 12 months to break even. And so back on the advertising side, or what we call the customer acquisition side, how are you going to acquire customers? Using this profit per customer translates into the other side of the coin, as we call it, around customer acquisition. And so again, the PPC environment is really, really tough, right? We've seen CPCs climbing up. They're not going to be decreasing anytime soon. And it's becoming more and more difficult to break even on that first purchase. And if you're looking, let's say D2C or other channels, for a while, it's been quite a common strategy to not break even on that first purchase because you've got the data to kind of inform you what to do, right? And so what we're saying here is like, hey, maybe you can just wait 3 months to break. We're not saying you have to wait 12 months, right? We're saying that, hey, if you just wait 3 months, people would have bought again, and you can actually spend. You thought you could your break even ACOS, your break even ROAS, you thought was 20% or whatever it may be in ACOS terms, but hey, it's actually 40% if you just prepare to wait 3 months. And so that totally changes how you think about where to allocate your ad budgets on the PPC side, which products to go after. And frankly, you can be a lot more aggressive. A lot of the, for instance, a lot of search terms that perhaps were way too expensive for you in the past may come into play now that you can, afford 40% break even ACOS instead of 20. And so that's kind of one of the main metrics and use cases that we would use.
So the type of demographics that you're pulling out of it, are you like, is it age? Is it gender?
Yeah, so we're not doing demographics. That stuff is like actually available to brand registered sellers anyway within the Amazon, console. And so for us, reproducing that information is not that valuable, and it's not particularly actionable, right? Like, for us, it's always asking the question that, I have this number, I have this metric, like, so what, right? Like, what am I meant to do with this number? And so with the demographic, it's kind of nice that you can perhaps infer a few things, but nothing is like such a solid signal as someone actually putting their money, and buying something from you. So
Right.
With demographics, you can, with Amazon's DSP, you can do demographic targeting, right? So you can, translate it back on the advertising side within targeting rules, but on the PPC, you can't really target, by demographics, at least not yet. And so, it's kind of limited in how you want to use that. Like, it might inform some of your copywriting and how you want to do your listing, right? But it's not like the strongest sort of signal. So, we might one day bring it in when we can think of like a really good so what on the demographics. But for right now, it's focused on, where people put their money, basically, and what you can infer and do with that.
Okay, kind of important.
Exactly. So that's one of the metrics. The other main metric would be customer retention rates, right? So I've just given you that example where a 1% increase in the retention rate results in a 7% increase in your profits. So just measuring your retention rate over time, is it increasing? Is it decreasing? How do you improve that, right? So if you want to run a basic remarketing campaign to someone, you can do that, right? We'll give you the data to say, hey, I ran this particular remarketing campaign, and hey, I saw an uplift in my retention rate by 1 or 2%, or whatever it may be. So that's pretty actionable and really good to track. And each product has its very different retention rates, right? Ultimately, and if you have the choice of where you want to focus your time and energy, products with really good retention rates, perhaps they're Subscribe and Save, for instance, are really good candidates, right? Those are the ones that you can really afford to invest in, and people will pay if you want to sell your business one day, people will pay a premium for that. A third metric, which is quite interesting, is this idea of what we call purchase journey. So I alluded to this a little earlier, where if you come in and buy product A and you buy again 3 months later, is it product A again or is it product B? And so what people use this for is, if you have a trial product, do people buy the trial and then go buy the full version, right? What is that trial conversion rate ultimately? And so we've had at both ends. We've had customers where, somebody's selling a 6-pack of drinks. They sell 6-packs and 12-packs. The 6-packs, they don't make any money off. They're trying to introduce people to the brand, and the hope is that they'll go buy a 12-pack for their next purchase. But for instance, in this case, at least, people who bought 6-packs just carried on buying 6-packs, or they didn't buy again. And so, we said to them, there's no point in carrying on with this, right? Kill their product. In other cases, it's worked really well, where you're selling dog products. You give a sample pack, and then people go buy the full version for their next purchase. 28% trial conversion ratio, fantastic. You're running all the way to the bank, kind of thing. So, those are kind of the main use cases that we're focused on for now.
Okay, so if a seller doesn't have your app, are there ways that they can track this themselves? Are there actionable items they can take?
It is possible to do this. You need to be plugged into the API ecosystem to do that, right? So you need to register as a developer. You can do it. It's just obviously kind of a lot of, time and effort to do that. But so you register as a developer, you get approved, you need to draw down the data and, decide how you want to, calculate and define all these sort of things. I mean, it is doable to do that, but I guess very often we would say, hey, we're just sort of rather, pay you $77 a month or whatever it is to go and do that. It's just much easier and more accurate, and all that sort of stuff.
So I'm curious if you have any data on this, but for people who do try to do this on their own, like what are some of the common mistakes that they might make?
Yes. So some of the mistakes are actually really to do with Amazon's API. So API is just a way of automatically drawing down the data from Amazon, right? So you can get it into your own sort of ecosystem, your own database or whatever it is. So Amazon's APIs are very unclear on what things actually mean. And so we had to spend such a long time understanding those data sets, speaking to Amazon to clarify what they mean, and then going and sort of calculating this sort of thing. So navigating the data, the shape of the data, the definitions, all that sort of stuff, I think is really, really tough, and people very much underestimate that. Then, at the end of the day, these are quite, in some cases, like a profit per customer, you'll come across quite a lot of edge cases and, things like that. So like really understanding how you want to define these sort of things. If somebody, what happens if, he has an edge case. I'm getting a little bit into the weeds, but he has an edge case. What happens if somebody for their first purchase buys two different products? Like, how are you, what is your profit per customer for this if they go buy this product first? So how do you attribute those sort of things? So you can get into like a bit of the weeds into, into the data and all that sort of stuff. But this is, we live and breathe this stuff. We know what best practice looks like. We've spoken to all the people that, and we've spoken to a lot of the founders and the e-com managers and the brand managers and everyone who's doing that, and to figure out like, actually, what do you want to achieve on this? We can adjust, the definition depending on what your goal is. And then, arriving at what we think is a pretty robust and defendable definition of these sort of things. So, I think that's it's quite tricky on how you want to define and calculate these things as well.
Okay, so just a quick reminder, if you do want to try to, enter the draw for the free 30-minute consult with Rael. And, I forgot to mention, it's 50% off, plus there's a 14-day free trial, plus the box of chocolate if you're in North America, and the 2020 calendar with Tim, Jordan, and myself. It's hashtag Wheel of Kelsey, tag 2 people, and you will get a second entry. So, Kelsey, before we go any further, can we go to our sponsor, please? Thank you, Sellerize, for sponsoring this episode of Lunch with Norm. Sellerize is your comprehensive solution for your everyday business needs. Everything you need to grow and scale your Amazon business is just one click away. For more information, contact Dima and his team over at Sellerize.com. And remember, Sellerize is with one R. Just one R. Okay. So the other information I was thinking about, and I know we kind of went through it before, but again, just to stress the point, the information that you will provide us, or the information that's extracted, can help the supplier how?
Yeah, ultimately this informs building. Ultimately, it definitely informs building a much stronger business. What this does, the core value proposition ultimately is really understanding how profitable is a customer of yours, and therefore how much can you spend to acquire a customer on Amazon, right? And that has been that is best practice in e-com outside of the Amazon ecosystem, just simply because the data is available to do that. But now we're bringing this into the Amazon ecosystem because it's getting much, much harder or more expensive to acquire customers on Amazon, right? Your PPC's going through the roof, and you're having to spend more and more to acquire customers, and it's getting much harder to break even on that first purchase. And so we're giving you the information to say, here's some alternatives. You can either, cut down on sort of the high CPC search terms that might bring you some valuable customers, or here's the information to say, hey, if you just wait for 3 months or 2 purchases, turns out you can spend double what you thought to acquire a customer, right? And so it's always the sort of mirror images there. Number one, how profitable is a customer? And number two, therefore, how much can I actually spend to acquire a customer?
There's we're going to get to it. I see there's a few questions in there, but even off of Amazon, I just wanted to point this out. We've talked about it before, but you want to know your customer within Amazon. But if you can take that information, let's say you drive it over to your site and you're extracting or getting that email, like who are your Amazon or your customers? And it's so important for you to get to understand that. And one way to do it is Rand Fishkin's app called SparkToro.
Yeah, I know SparkToro, sure.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's a 10-minute training and you're off to the races. So
yeah, he's great.
if you're listening, check it out. I have no association. Rand's been on before. He's an awesome guy, but he went out there to really help you understand. And then what you can take with that information, just to make it that much more inexpensive for you, is you can take that, extract it, put it into Facebook, and then take that information and try to drive traffic over to a landing page or directly over to your Amazon page, where Amazon is now rewarding you 10% up, an average of 10% with their bonus referral program. So there's not only is it better for you to understand the customer, but you get paid for understanding your customer. And the other thing is, like, I sell soap. So different people buy different soaps. So it's not only understanding the soap, like you might have a scent for men, a scent for ladies. You might have a typical, like a sport. You might have an earthy tone. And different people like patchouli. Like, who buys patchouli? Well, usually, it's the old hippie soap, it's people, that like nature,
Yeah.
Like,
and when do they buy it, right? Like, is it something they typically buy first from you, or is it something that they typically, buy second or third after you've gained a bit of trust and they like your products, right?
Right. Yeah. And so you would, like, even with that information, your landing pages, if you're driving people over to the landing pages, would be that much different than if you were like men's scent. You think of Dr. Squatch, it would probably be a lot more, it's probably a lot different. They know that they're men, but what's their demographic? With that app, it'll tell you basically who the influencers are, what the demographics are, and it makes it easy to set up the interest in Facebook.
We use SparkToro just for our tool, right? When we launched our tool, like, who's in the Amazon ecosystem, who should we know about, who should we be talking to, who should we target, like all that sort of stuff. Like, let's try to get customers for our tool. I definitely use SparkToro. So
Has it worked for you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's so easy, isn't it?
He personally gets back on the emails as well, Rand. So I emailed him, I think, like 1 or 2 questions or clarification, whatever it is, and he's very kind enough to get back. And I was very impressed. So
or so you think.
I know, right? I know. I did kind of say that, but I'd like to believe it was.
Yeah, I know. Just like Neil Patel, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so Kelsey, do we have any other questions here? I know we do.
Good.
Yeah, we do. So Dr. Cause has got a couple of questions.
Yep.
Folks are jumping on off Amazon, going Google to comparing eBay, Shopify, Walmart. For me, the direct ACOS and tacos calculated on a single platform is becoming dubious. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, great question. It's kind of the holy grail in many ways, right? Like a perfect attribution system across platforms to say, they first did this on Google, then 2 days later they came on Amazon, then they went to a price comparison site, all that. There's been a whole industry since the beginning of online advertising. Since the beginning of the 90s, people have been trying to come up with some unified solution. It is incredibly difficult to do. I don't believe it's done properly at the moment. In some ways, I don't believe it can be done properly, simply because some of the major players in the ecosystem are closed and they don't allow you the data to actually stitch the whole journey together. Having said that, though, I do, it's obviously, I guess, preferable to be 100% accurate, but in many ways, you just want to be, the benchmark doesn't have to be 100% accuracy, right? You can still make hugely important, impactful decisions if you are directionally correct, right? Whether you're 87% accurate versus 90% accurate, you can still move the needle at 87%, right? And so looking for like a perfect solution doesn't exist. I do think something like the Amazon attribution tool is very interesting. It's got some issues. It's still very kind of early stage right now. You have to do proper attribution at like an individual ASIN level. You have to set up your campaigns on, I don't know, Google, Facebook, whatever it is, in a very specific way to be able to do that properly. But if they, and I know they're investing in it, but if they iterate properly on that, then I think that could become quite interesting, because that, we're exploring that as well, because we want to capture all your ad spend, right? When we're saying, hey, you're currently spending $10 to acquire a customer, we want to be able to say, this much is coming from Facebook, this much is coming from Google. So the Amazon attribution tool, I think, is really interesting as a good starting point to be able to do that. But outside of that, I think the big players aren't going to work with each other sufficiently to be able to do that in a really meaningful way, right? If anything, Apple, all the iOS changes and how they've impacted Facebook and all that sort of stuff, I think that's kind of the direction it's going. So I don't think it's going to be solved properly in anytime soon. But just focusing, I guess, on your Amazon listing via that attribution tool, I think has done a reasonably good job so far. It's got some way to go, but I know they're investing in it, so I'm pretty hopeful.
Yeah, and we're seeing like really great partnerships form between Shopify, Walmart, and Google. So who knows what will happen there?
That's true.
But
that's true.
I don't know if you've noticed this. This is something that it's really bizarre, but I've got a brand that's on Amazon. Most of the sales are off Amazon, believe it or not, and the high majority, like 96% of the sales.
Okay.
And if I take a look at who's buying on Amazon, typically, who's buying on Google, and it's completely different people.
Yeah.
It's a completely different demographic.
Yeah, I love that point, right? Because so much of the pushback against selling on Amazon is it's effectively cannibalizing your D2C, your Shopify, for instance, right? So we've had a lot of resistance from D2C native founders or companies that say, hey, I don't own the data, I don't really have any insight into my customers, and it's going to cannibalize, it's going to cannibalize my Shopify data. And from what we've seen, exactly to your point, is it's not cannibalizing. They're just very different people that are buying your products, and actually is pretty complementary. So yes, legally you're not going to own the customer. That's probably never ever going to happen unless there's some regulatory intervention or whatever. So you can forget about that. In terms of the insights, well, we would say, of course, we would say this, but we would say, hey, there is actual parity now between Shopify and Amazon because of the sort of stuff that we're doing. Like, here are the insights. Like, what do you want to know about your customers? And then the third point is actually it doesn't really cannibalize, right? They're actually just the overlap of customers is pretty minimal. And so it's changing the mindset is quite difficult, I'd say, in some cases. But from what we've seen, I'd agree with you. Yeah,
and there are just certain products that it's tougher to sell on Amazon than on Shopify or on Walmart or
yeah. And I think what's interesting is something that probably doesn't get discussed enough is people always talk about product market fit, at least in the software world, where do you get enough adoption and people loving your product and escape velocity and all those sort of things. But there is also this concept of channel market fit. If you're selling a product in e-com, to your point, you've got to have the right product for the right channel, right? And Amazon versus D2C are just very different beasts, very different types of people who are willing to do so. Go through the extra friction of D2C compared to Amazon, or that kind of thing. So really thinking about, does this product really fit the Amazon ecosystem? I think a lot of people just sort of rush into launching things on Amazon without thinking that through properly, ultimately.
Yeah, and what's funny? We had Taylor Offer on the other day, and he talks about, I sell to mom and pop stores. There's 300,000 across the U.S., and I get paid immediately.
Exactly.
It's wow. Okay, we gotta we can't forget those guys.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's I love that point because it's not discussed enough. The other thing, this is more anecdotal stuff, right? So we've had some customers who've run some experiments. You got to be very careful about remaining within Amazon's terms of service. But if someone who first buys on Amazon, you try give them a legitimate reason to try and go D2C, remaining within terms of service. And what they noticed is that sure, they might, and there's some way of doing that. So their second purchase is actually D2C, but their third and their fourth and their fifth purchases are back on Amazon, right? And so again, it's just, you're not going to get this person to go D2C ultimately, right? And so there are very much big differences in customers, and as I say, it's not going to cannibalize your D2C. There are just some people that will only buy on Amazon, and that happens a lot more often than people think.
Interesting. Kelsey, Is there another question? I know there's more questions.
All right. Yep. So just a reminder, we have the hashtag Wheel of Kelsey. If you are interested, get them in. Also, we are taking questions. So let us know in the comments if you have anything about knowing your customer, any thoughts. They can be as complicated or as simple as you want. That's we deal with it all. So the next question is from let's do from Jeff. So this is from Jeff. Is there a suggestion to following platform TOS to work positively to head off low reviews before they happen?
Is there a suggestion to work off head off low review? I think this one's really, really tough, right? So this is one of the areas where Amazon's kind of the strictest around the terms of service. So I think like proper, remaining within TOS. I think it's going to be quite tough. It's not something that I have particular experience with. It's not something that I guess anecdotally I know people have done. I mean, this is going to be a bit of a cop-out of an answer, but it's really about providing a good quality product in the first place. But it's, I mean, that speaks to a wider point. Like, we can go so deep into the data. I can get all as sophisticated as you like. But if you're not selling a product that people want or a good quality product, like don't bother doing anything else.
Yeah, I don't think this is a data question. I think it's a customer experience question.
Yeah. Okay.
And I can't agree more with you that like if you're launching a product, Jeff, and this is maybe pre-launch, send out a bunch. Get it yourself, by the way, because you don't know how the final product ended up in your 3PL, but get people to test it out and just see what they think. So like, I'll just use an example, and this really did happen. So there was a particular shade of green that somebody didn't like in my soap, and they gave me a 1-star review because of the shade of green.
Amazing.
You couldn't make that
stuff up, right? Yeah, exactly.
But when people receive the soap, is it packaged nicely? Do they like the scent? Sometimes, and again, this is in my industry, I know this, sandalwood or lavender. There's very different scents for lavender or sandalwood. And if you don't have the right scent, and you can hear it right off the bat for people who loves lavender or sandalwood, where to go. If it's too strong, if it's not quite the right scent, then you can shop around and change it around before it's too late. But I think customer experience, know the product, like make sure that it's packaged well. That will help you with the reviews more than, and plus you've got to know your data. You have to know your audience.
Yeah, I mean, I love your point around the packaging, because using some of, here's an example, I guess, where you could use the data, which is to say, if on average people buy 3 times from you in a year, and you're not under so much pressure to break even on their first purchase, perhaps you can spend more investing in better packaging and better sort of customer experience, right? Because you've got a lot more room to play with now in terms of your margins. So if I just wait 3 months, it means I can do these things, get better quality product or better quality packaging, or whatever it may be, in order to do that. So I think that's great. But yeah, I mean, any sort of early testing, nothing to do with Amazon, just get the product in people's hands and get feedback and all that sort of stuff. There's I guess no substitute for that, but it's very difficult within the Amazon ecosystem, I would say, to do that upfront, at least.
Yeah, I think it is. Okay, Kels, next.
Okay, I think this is the last question from Dr. Cause. Folks are we did that one, sorry. How do you value banner ads? For example, pure brand authority building isn't necessarily an activity that will present immediate sales data. It's a long-term play. I'd love to hear your comments about this.
Yeah, so again, I could, I guess, talk for quite a while on this. It's interesting. In my previous business, we were effectively writing custom algorithms for programmatic advertising, which is effectively Amazon's DSP or banner ads, right? And so I'm pretty familiar with how all of that stuff works under the hood. And the bottom line is you can have a whole bunch of different what's called attribution models, right? And so most of the advertising ecosystem will work on what's called last touch attribution. So if someone first sees your banner ad on day 0, 3 days later clicks on one of your ads on the CPC side, then views another banner ad, and then clicks another CPC and goes and buys the product, everything that happened before that last ad doesn't count at all, right? A full attribution goes to that last ad that they clicked and bought the product. Is it unfair? Probably. And so there's a whole sort of world of creating what's called custom attribution models to say, how much does it really matter that, they saw this first ad on day 0, it was a banner ad. They just saw it. They didn't interact with it, right? They didn't click it. They didn't do anything, but they just saw it. And so is that 10%? Is that 50%? And so there's, real complicated way of trying to figure out all this sort of stuff. Of course it matters. But exactly how much, in a way, kind of depends on your product. And so if you're selling a much more sort of expensive item, if you're selling a TV or furniture that's in the hundreds of dollars, right? The banner advertising stuff probably is going to get a lot more credit, ultimately, the awareness and all that sort of stuff, as opposed to something that's a much shorter purchase cycle. Like if you know that somebody views an ad, you're selling a TV, right? It's, I don't know, $500, whatever it is. You know that it probably takes somebody like a month or two, right, to actually go and purchase it because they want to, research it and, or compare it and wait for the best price and all that sort of stuff. And so actually the banner ad should get more credit for it because it's part of that 2-month journey of the buying cycle. Whereas something that's, much cheaper, that's, I don't know, $10 or something, you don't really need to research it. It's just kind of perhaps an impulse buy. A banner ad probably doesn't need to matter that much. So without getting into like all the weird details of the attribution, that's kind of how we would look at that. Now, interestingly, Amazon has the Amazon Marketing Cloud, which they've been pushing sort of towards the end of last year. It's been in beta for quite a while. This is at the moment just focused on the Amazon ecosystem, but it is actually a way of tracking all the advertising that's going on across all of Amazon's products. So you're able to put in, the banner ads. So Amazon's DSP data, you can put in things like your PPC data from sponsored display and, all that sort of stuff. And there's a whole roadmap of that. But ultimately what this aims to do, this Amazon Marketing Cloud, is actually stitch together that journey of saying exactly what I just said around, hey, on day 1, they viewed this ad. On day 3, they clicked on this one. And on day 5, they bought it. And you can start putting custom attribution models to that as well. So Amazon will say, the default is last click, as we said, but hey, you might want to try these other attribution models as well. So as a very detailed, I guess, answer to all of these sort of things, like with most things in advertising, it's never very clear cut. And the answer is it depends, which is not really what people want to hear. But I guess for me, they absolutely matter. And certain industries are more reliant on banner ads than others as well. Like selling anything in health and beauty is going to, banner ads and awareness and, all that sort of stuff is more impactful than something where, another category, for instance. So it depends on the category and it depends on the price of the product and ultimately the buying cycle. Is it 2 months or is it like 30 seconds that someone's considering the purchase before they buy it?
Right. Yeah. Great answer. With just a sec here, another frog. Yeah, usually with answers like that is how long is a piece of string, but I think you explained it well.
It's more about what variables to consider if you're going to do something custom. What are the things you need to think about?
Yeah, and when I think of, and I'm talking about in the Amazon system, when you surround your ad when you surround your product with your own product, like the sponsored ads, the banner.
Yeah.
The branded ads, the display ads, and the sponsored ads. I mean, if you do it with your own keywords, I mean, it's a really great brand defense. You're spending money, but you're trying to, win that customer over without, your client or your other competition showing up on your page. So, you do spend to make in some cases, but if it's a bar of soap, I know they're going to come back for more. So it's well worth it.
Yeah, exactly. You're working it out over the lifetime of the customer as opposed to just, the first purchase, basically.
Exactly.
And that's what we're all about as well.
Okay. So, go ahead, Kels.
We do have one more question from Bronwyn. So Bronwyn is asking, what is the best way to know your customer target market if you are in a launch phase and don't have any customer data?
Yeah, great question. Love that. Very difficult to do that. I mean, for me, it's difficult to do that on Amazon. For me, the testing would be trying to do it like off Amazon, right? Trying to run tests to see what sort of people are interested in your product. So a lot of the time, you could run a PPC test on Facebook on who you think your product is, driving to a particular landing page and seeing who's signing up to do that. For your product or a waiting list or whatever it is, right? So for me, most of that work will have to be before you even launch. Now, you're never going to have super strong conviction around who your customers are, right? Like that's just kind of unrealistic. And in many ways, Nozzle as a company faced the same thing. Like, ultimately we're providing all this data, but it's not applicable to every type of seller in the Amazon universe, right? Like you need to have a product that lends itself to repeat orders ultimately, right? Otherwise, what's the point in talking about a retention rate if they have no need to buy? If you're selling a TV for $1,000, you're going to wait like a long time before they're going to buy again, kind of thing, right? So, we went through a similar process of saying, well, we think it's this sort of person, or we think it could be any one of these 4 different types of personas. At the end of the day, you want to come up with a persona of your customer. So this is something like it could be demographic information, but it could be things like, what are their pain points, or why are they buying the product, or what's your product differentiation? And this is a process of ultimately speaking to people. There's no substitute for speaking to people. I would say probably not friends and family, because they're going to be biased, or perhaps afraid to tell you, it's the wrong thing.
It sucks.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of what I wanted to say. So there are ways of trying to just put it in front of neutral people ultimately that are going to give you an honest answer. And it's a way of testing it, right? And it's also the language you use at the end of the day. So for us, when we started Nozzle, we would have 10 different landing pages, all with like different propositions, different language that we're using to describe the product. I'll give you one example. I've been on this call, I've been talking about profit per customer. We also sometimes call it customer lifetime value. And customer lifetime value is kind of known within, I don't know, perhaps like a Shopify world, but, Amazon sellers or our personas aren't going to use that term. So yeah, you're finding out the language to use and the personas and building up a picture of a particular customer. That's, for me, something that's going to be done before you even launch ultimately. And, you've got to be pretty nimble about this sort of stuff. And, once you launch, you've got to monitor it. Is it still the case? Do all those things still hold, right? Is it actually a different type of person? And this can come via experimentation via PPC, for instance, where you can start targeting, different sorts of terms that target different types of personas to see where your traction is. But it's really a method of, in a way, A/B testing or split testing to be able to do that. But as I say, that's perhaps a more expensive way of doing it. You want to do most of the legwork before you even launch.
And a couple of other things I like to add is you could you could do your competitive analysis. So you could even simply just go to Helium 10, run Cebro, find the closest products that you can find. Like if you're looking for lavender soap, don't look at people who sell sandalwood soap, right? So you want to get as similar of a product. Go and check out, see what the pain points are, like you were saying, in the listing. See the language that they're using. You could even go into Facebook groups and see what type of language, like
absolutely,
they're using. We've
had
read
the reviews, right? Read the reviews.
Yeah, exactly.
What people like, and perhaps even more importantly, what people don't like about the products, right? And then you're like, okay, cool, that's probably what I need to focus on, right? Or at least worth a test.
And then the other thing you can do is once you see who your major competitors are here, check them out, go to their social media. And again, it's competitive analysis, but then go to Spark Toro.
Yeah, I was about to say that, right?
And then just extract everything. And there's one other thing you can do with the information that you get from your competitive analysis. Use either PickFu or Usability Hub. And you were just saying you got to talk to people. Well, there's the people that you need to talk to, a very inexpensive focus group that you can ask and who you can say, like you can think that this is your demographic. They'll come back and say, no, we wouldn't buy it. Okay, who would? So anyways, you can definitely use that.
Yeah, I would certainly be making use of something like PickFu. They're in a different, there's a somewhat of a different mentality, I guess, in a way, with people on PickFu, incentives, right, around why they're there in the first place versus someone who's perhaps got a lot more intent because they're searching for something, or whatever it is. There's kind of a different place in the buying, like someone's actually thinking about buying something or interested in it versus what's your view on this? But I would
Yeah.
certainly do it and combine it with other ways of doing it as well, right? So I build up a different picture.
Okay. So I think that's it, Kels. Are there any more questions?
No, I think we covered them all. So
Cool.
I think we're good to go for
Okay, Rael.
the Wheel
Sit
of
back,
Kelsey.
relax. You'll see this for the first time.
All right, here we go. The Wheel of Kelsey.
It's time for the Wheel of Kelsey.
Okay.
All right, here we go. The Wheel of Kelsey. Thank you for everyone who entered. You have 48 hours to reach out to me if you are today's winner. So I'm going to go shuffle these up. And let's see. All right, so if you are the winner, please email me, k@lunchwithnorm.com, and we'll set everything up for you. And it looks like the winner is
looking
Tony.
good for Tony.
Oh, Tony S.
Nice one, Tony.
Congratulations. All right, so we'll set you up.
It's a nice way to start the new year, Tony.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Okay, so I think that's about it. The only thing I like to add, you have the app. People just go to Nozzle to go and purchase it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got I guess a link that they can go to where they will qualify for the there's a 14-day free trial, but also a 50% discount on the first month as well. If you just want to chat about stuff, I love them. Clearly, I wouldn't be doing this if I don't love the topic and all that. So if you're just curious even and want to reach out to me, always happy to have a chat as well.
Okay, very good. Okay, so how do people get a hold of you? You want to get contacted by email or social media?
Email or social media. So email is rael.cline, rael.cline @nozzle.ai, or LinkedIn. Those are probably the two most. I'm not that active on Twitter. Or alternatively, go to the website and sort of reach out there. But always happy to have a chat. I love this topic.
Fantastic. All right, Rael. Thank you for being on the show. You were awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Until next time, we'll see you later. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the topic today. I thought it was very useful, especially, these are things that we don't normally talk about, understanding your Amazon client, but we also talked about, in general, understanding your audience. So it's so important. On Friday, we're going to be joined by Yaden Schemmer, and we're going to be talking about, he's a first-time guest, by the way, but we're going to be talking about the challenges business owners are having right now with health and wellness. So it's going to be an interesting show. We started out last year the same way. We want to make sure everybody is, got a healthy approach to business and, to take action if you don't have a healthy approach to business, or if your wellness, wellness is so important right now. I don't think I have to tell you, everybody's probably known somebody who, is suffering or who has suffered with this whole COVID situation. So tune in. It'll be an interesting episode. But before we get over to Kelsey, let's have another quick word from our sponsor. I wanted to give a quick shout out and say thank you to Global Wired Advisors for sponsoring this episode of Lunch with Norm. Global Wired Advisors is a leading digital investment bank focused on optimizing the business sales process. For more information, please call Chris Schifferling and his team over at globalwiredadvisors.com. Okay, dude.
All right. Another great episode.
That's the first time I think I've ever called you dude.
I know. It's unsettling, but
I don't usually call people dude.
You can start. It's a new year. Why not?
Dude, Squire dude.
It's better than Squire, I think. But thank you everyone who tuned in today. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you. I see some new users as well. So if you're new to the show, it's we go live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and we stream on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. So just tune in, follow us on social media, and you'll get all the alerts that you need.
Kelsey was on time again today, which was awesome.
Awesome. 2 in a row. Also, attention for our Platinum Patreon users. We do have our guest lesson today with Ritu Java. So that's available for our
That's
paid
going
membership.
to be awesome.
Yep. So it's a very small group. Super excited about that. And that will be in about an hour. So see you guys then. And I think that's about it. Smash those like buttons if you haven't already. Check out Rael's Nozzle.ai for more information from today's episode. You can check the links in the description as well. And I think that's it.
Fantastic. Okay. So don't forget to tune in every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. Thanks for being part of our community. Like Kelsey said at the beginning, we couldn't have done this without you. We can't do it without you. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Lunch with them.